Land valuations have increased dramatically for some homeowners, especially those with lakefront properties. It's feared that if the council's normal method of determining rates is used, some residents could be forced out of their homes by massive rate hikes. However, new legislation has given councils greater flexibility in fixing rates, and the Minister for Local Government, David Hay, is recommending councils use a differential method, which could see everyone paying a 6.7% increase on last year. This is exactly what the Lake Macquarie Action Group will put to council, suggesting ways in which it can be achieved. So far, the Mayor, Ivan Welsh, has claimed it's too hard to do, saying there's not enough time to advertise the new rates since they must be set by the end of December.
The David Allen was launched in February. Since then, it's been undergoing shakedown trials. Its main use for the Port of Newcastle will be to maintain the channel depth for large ships. Equipped with a special arm and sucking head, it draws up deposits of river silt and stores this on board before taking it out to sea for dumping. At sea, the ship's hulls separate, allowing the silt to empty. Of the country's major ports, Newcastle is the only real rivermouth port. Each year, about 450,000 tonnes of topsoil washes into the Hunter River and must be dredged out at Newcastle. The $13 million David Allen is more than capable of dealing with the annual silt build-up. It will also help pay for itself by dredging harbours at Sydney and Port Kembla.
It will be used primarily in Newcastle, but it's capable of going to the other ports in New South Wales and doing dredging work in those ports as well.
The dredge will have a crew of 7 and is also equipped for combating oil spills and fires, as well as carrying out routine maintenance on channel markers. A crane on board allows it to dredge around shipping berths. Named after a Newcastle harbour master who started dredging the port more than 100 years ago, the David Allen represents the latest in technology.
Daytime racing may be rare, and many took the opportunity despite the sweltering heat to make the journey to Broadmeadow, where they quenched their thirst with copious quantities of bubbly and beer, while Chef Dali Navratil fed the famine with open-baked delicacies. 12 months ago, the Newcastle Harness Racing Club shifted headquarters from the showgrounds to the International Paceway, and the improvement has been dramatic. In the past year, over $15 million has flowed through the tote, around a 100% increase on the corresponding period. Not only have the punters responded, but there has been an amazing increase in the number of horses in training in the region. Gordon Lockman was appointed as the new Secretary-Manager of the NHRC, and he's already impressed.
This is a tremendous crowd here today for a Tuesday afternoon, and the carnival atmosphere and that, I think it augurs very well for the future of harness racing here in Newcastle.
Even though the crowd's down on Saturday night, still plenty of punters keen on Race 7, the Novocaster in Restaurateur's Pace, and 3 horses seem to be in the market. Master Speed's quoted at 2s, Looney 1 at 2s, and Rips Glamour at 4s. The 8 runners in the race lined up perfectly behind the mobile barrier, and 2,030 metres later the winner would be known. At the bell, 1 lap from home, it was Rips Glamour leading the way from Thunder Park, Master Speed and Shy Mech, with many still with definite chances. But as they swung into the straight, it was Neville Greenwood who had Shy Mech in the top slot. Looney 1 got the money and returned $6 even and $1.80. Princess Milltown was second and returned $2.60. Master Speed third, paying $1.20. With 3 races remaining, there was plenty of time for punters to pocket a few bob and relax at one of the state's premier harness racing venues.
Put the amendment. All in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. As against? Please pick I speak on behalf of all the councillors because that was demonstrated to them. 13. 13. Any opposition? If not,
In the Mine Council of the rather sorry saga of this development. Council, a preschool on that site, under the zoning, be located, as I understand it, we've produced the preschool, and if the council require that, then we are obviously quite prepared to do that. But I personally think that
A recent university study revealed health workers in Sydney's AIDS wards were discriminated against by other staff. Unfortunately, the problem appears to exist in Newcastle as well.
People may be reluctant to sit at the same seat in a cafeteria. In the past, people have been told quite openly, please don't sit here because we think you might be carrying the virus.
That would seem amazing coming from people that work in a medical institution.
The lesson we've learned is that there's no such thing as a single educational exercise. You can educate people once, but it's no good. You've got to come back again and again and again.
Staff say they're often made the target of unwelcome jokes that only serve to add to the stress the job entails.
We have a fantastic group of nursing staff, cleaning staff, others working here. They are under enormous stresses and they cope reasonably well. We just don't need this.
Hospital administrators say it would be impossible to completely eliminate this sort of prejudice and insist it only exists on a minute scale.
The very isolated cases in which it happens is of concern. We have a very comprehensive in-service education program here, and we think that those cases are quickly isolated and we deal with them.
The fire was reported shortly after midday. Brigades from Toronto, Wangi and Morisset spent 2 hours fighting the blaze, which swept through several hectares of scrub. Highway Patrol Police closed the Toronto-Wangi main road as dense smoke dangerously reduced visibility. The outbreak was the first significant bushfire of the season. Fire brigade officers say it's too early to forecast the summer fire risk.
We're optimistic that we might have a quiet year, but it's difficult to tell. We've noted that the last few days the temperature has risen considerably. The humidity's dropping. I say it's down to 17 up at Scone at the moment, so that's an indication of the drying out of the bushland and grassland areas.
Meanwhile, firefighters are applying some heat of their own to the state government. The battle over new uniforms has flared again. Firefighters say the old woolen coats are outdated, the wool holds water and absorbs chemicals, the brass buttons conduct electricity and heat.
Would you believe the old uniform was implemented in 1884?
The old coats cost the government about $80 each. The new ones like these are worth more than $350. Firefighters will resume an industrial campaign, fighting fires from a safe distance only. No salvage work will be done and buildings won't be entered unless they've been declared safe by a structural engineer. Is there a risk to the public during this?
No risk to the public. We're there to save life and property. So therefore there'll be no risk whatsoever. We're there to carry out our duty 100% as far as firefighting.
Exactly 1 week before the Western murder, a man was brutally attacked 15 kilometres away on the road to Mulbring. Until today, the only clue to identifying the attacker was the dog he left tied to the fence outside the victim's house. Today, police issued an identikit picture of the man. He's believed to be in his early 30s, around 175 centimetres tall, of solid build and medium complexion. He has short, dark, greasy-looking hair and was last seen wearing a blue winch heater and checked shirt. While they have no direct clues to link the Matic attack with the gruesome Western murder, police believe the brutality of both incidents could provide a vital lead.
The way that the offender broke in through a large sliding plate glass window or door and tried to strike the victim with a Matic.
Detectives are appealing to anyone who may recognise the picture or the attacker's dog to contact Curry Police on 371 593. Alison Peters for NBN News. The travelling Intech exhibition that opened in Kotara's Garden City today prompted a great deal of interest, and not only from shoppers. Minister for School Education Virginia Chadwick was impressed, as was Alan Beard of the Hunters Department of Education. This exquisitely made compound bow with its case and stand is the handiwork of New Lambton's David Finlay and is included in a small selection of the projects to go on show in Sydney's Powerhouse Museum next January. The projects form part of the HSC Industrial Technology course. 35 exhibits from students around the state were chosen from more than 4,000 submitted. 7 of those chosen were fashioned in the Hunter and the Central Coast. Local students showed their craftsmanship in wood, from the elaborately upholstered chased lounge to the Australian toy animals, and in plastic, this modified runabout with reversible seats for camping. Another innovative idea in plastic is the surf ski powerboard, steered by the skill and balance of its rider, a Central Coast student. The exhibition continues until next Saturday.
Wastewater from Charlestown, Highfields, Cohiba and Dudley is fed to the Burwood treatment plant via a small pipe. Just 450 millimetres in diameter, it traverses environmentally sensitive sections of the Glenrock State Recreation Area. It serves more than 11,000 residents, but that number is expected to increase dramatically, adding to the load this single pipe must carry. In heavy rain, the raw sewage escapes through these manholes, installed initially to provide access for maintenance crews. The wastewater runs into the lagoon below, creating an environmental disaster.
We've had surcharging sewers in the Glenrock area, and it's meant that the lagoon itself is much more polluted than what it should be.
The plan is to duplicate the pipe with a larger diameter. This will increase the capacity of carrier mains and allow the system to handle bigger flows after rain. The manholes will be raised and sealed to prevent surcharge escaping into the lagoon and Flaggy Creek. But this installation creates its own environmental problems. Access tracks will add to soil erosion, and fauna and flora will need protection from heavy machinery. The board is consulting with the Parks and Wildlife Service and residents to find the best option.
In the recreation area, it's a magnificent area. It's an area that we think that's been badly managed in the past by us and others, so that we're very sensitive to the environmental issues as in replacing the pipe and in controlling the storm flows.
Newcastle's other troubled waterway, Throsby Creek, was also under the spotlight today. The State Catchment Management Committee met in Newcastle to see where $1.2 million in state funds will be spent. The aim is to clean up the water in the creek and stop the smell.
There will be trash racks installed at the bridges here to keep sediment or the trash away from flowing through. There'll also be a major dredging program. In fact, the predominant aspects will be dredging, and there'll be cleaning up of the foreshores. Also incorporation of wetlands and wildlife areas through, because after all, what we're trying to do here is return the environmental quality.
Work will begin soon on the stretch between Islington and the Hannell Street Bridge, but this is a one-off grant with no guarantee that future projects will get state funding.
Brett Stephen Short of Freeman's Waterhole made a brief appearance at Newcastle Court today, charged with the murder of Louisa Williams in her Awabba home. The police prosecutor asked for a 4-week adjournment to gather medical evidence, but this request was objected to by the defence. Bail was formally refused, with the matter adjourned to Wallsend Court next Monday. Meantime, detectives investigating the murder of June Brislane are concentrating on guests at the Newcastle Tattersalls Club near the time of her death. Police have renewed calls for anyone who was at the club after 11 p.m. on the night of Thursday, October 25, till 2 a.m. the next morning to come forward.
We've got a movements at this stage till fairly late on Thursday night, so we're really concentrating now on those movements and at what time she left the club and perhaps who with and where she went after that, bearing in mind the location where the body was found is not all that far from Tattersalls.
Police have interviewed staff at the club. They're now working through a guest register. At this stage, they want to speak to 40 to 50 people. Detectives have established Ms Brislane left the Tattersalls Club sometime after 11 p.m. on Thursday evening. Investigations now hinge on tracing her movements in the hours immediately before her death.
Are the 3 recent murders being treated as separate events?
Yes, they have. At this stage, I believe there's no connection between each of them. They're just 3 isolated murders.
Polair conducted an aerial survey of all 3 murder scenes today, while Curry police sifted through clues to the murder of Western man George Woodcock. Inquiries are centred on a man involved in a recent Matic attack on a Richmond Vale shift worker. It's believed the assailant left this dog behind in his haste to escape. Detectives want to question this man in connection with Mr Woodcock's murder. Police stress any information, no matter how insignificant, could provide vital clues to solving the brutal crime. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
Comparisons between Granville Island 20 years ago and Honeysuckle today are easy to make. Both were disused railway land, an eyesore on the shores of a busy industrial harbour. Now Granville Island attracts 6 million visitors a year and is a major tourist and shopping centre. Heritage buildings have been retained and redeveloped alongside a marketplace and a marina. Chairman of the Hunter Economic Development Council, David Boyd, has been to Granville Island. In an interview recorded for Newsnight tonight, Mr Boyd stresses the importance of residential development in any project of this kind.
The residential sector doesn't have to be on Honeysuckle, but there has to be a residential redevelopment near the Honeysuckle, which can be part of it and can be adjacent to it. I mean, some people mentioned to me, what about Stockton as a dormitory area for that? Others are the west of Honeysuckle, perhaps starting in Honeysuckle and spreading westward. But there's one thing for certain, and that is for a development like this to work, it has to have people living at its doorstep, because the statistics show that at Granville Island some 70% of the people who go there are local.
State schools have been gradually changing, some developing their own area of expertise to become a centre of excellence in that subject. But following the government's adoption of the recent Scott report, schools are about to diversify even more. Today's briefing was a chance for teachers and the public to learn about their new roles.
It means that school systems as a whole, individual schools, will have much more say in the way that they use funds. They'll have more say in the priorities within their schools, and certainly there will be more say in the community as to how the school that belongs to that community should operate.
That community involvement will come through the setting up of school councils. The 10 already established in the Hunter were today presented with charters. Although the Department of Education claims both teachers and parents are enthusiastic about the new policy, which comes into effect in 1995, it admits there could be some difficulties along the way.
I think the problems are that to bring about the change from our current system to a new system means that a lot of little changes have to be implemented, and the problems of the little changes have to be sorted out and dealt with before the bigger change can be arrived at.
The state government is to spend $1.2 million cleaning up Throsby Creek. Yesterday, the Catchment Management Committee inspected the area, which suffers from poor water quality and a bad smell at low tide. A major dredging program is planned, along with rubbish traps at key locations. Today's news that a major industry is adding to the pollution of the creek is of concern to environmentalists. The stormwater from Com Steel at Waratah ends up at Throsby Creek and eventually in Newcastle Harbour. Regular monitoring by the board picked up the problem.
As part of the board's ongoing monitoring program for industries, we've monitored Commonwealth Steel's effluent disposal system into the stormwater channel and found relatively high levels of grease and suspended solids going out into that system.
The company has assured the board that it is trying to fix the problem. It'll stop using detergents to clean equipment and cut back its use of soluble oils, which can find their way through oil separation units. While the board won't prosecute, repeated offences may bring hefty fines.
We can prosecute companies for fines of up to $20,000, or under the Environmental Offences and Penalties Act, we can, the State Pollution Control Commission can fine companies up to $1 million.